April 29th, 1945, Sunday afternoon, Bavaria. Soldiers of the 45th Infantry Division and 42nd Rainbow Division advance through southern Germany. These are men of Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks's 3rd Battalion, 157th Infantry Regiment. They have fought continuously for over 500 days across North Africa, Sicily, France. They have seen Anzio, the Gothic Line, the Rhine crossing. They believe they understand war. Modern mechanized combat, cities reduced to rubble, battlefields thick with bodies. They have processed atrocity through the lens of military necessity. They are moving toward a facility 16 kilometers northwest of Munich. Allied intelligence has identified it as Dachau concentration camp. Details remain limited. The soldiers expect something analogous to a prisoner of war facility. Harsh conditions, perhaps, evidence of mistreatment. War has been brutal, and no one expects the SS to have behaved gently. But nothing in their briefings or experience prepares them for what lies ahead. The combat that shaped them cannot explain what they are about to witness. Before reaching the main gates, the soldiers encounter a train. 39 freight cars sit motionless on tracks near the facility perimeter. The cars are closed. The smell reaches the approaching column from 50 meters. Unmistakable. Death and advanced decomposition. Private First Class John Lee from Texas approaches the first car. He slides the door open. The freight car contains bodies, human bodies, stacked without order or dignity. Men, women, skeletal forms in various stages of decay. Some wear striped prison uniforms, others are naked or clothed in rags that barely function as fabric. Bones protrude through skin stretched tight by starvation. Some bodies show bullet wounds, evidence that prisoners were shot during transport or when they cried out. Lee opens the second car. The same. The third car. Identical horror. Every car contains the same cargo. Approximately 2,000 corpses total. This train departed Buchenwald days earlier, transporting prisoners ahead of advancing Allied forces, packed into sealed cars without food, water, or ventilation. Many died of starvation and dehydration during the journey. SS guards shot others who made noise when the train stopped. When the train reached Dachau, the guards abandoned it and fled. The reaction is immediate and visceral. These are hardened combat veterans, men who survived Salerno, Anzio, the Vosges Mountains, men who have seen friends die in their arms, who have killed at close range, who have endured artillery barrages that lasted days. The death train breaks them. Multiple soldiers vomit beside the tracks. Others stand frozen, unable to process the evidence before them. Some weep openly, without shame. Private James Hoy, who fought from Normandy to Germany, will later write that the death train exceeded anything he experienced in combat. Combat kills soldiers. Young men who chose to fight, who understood the risks, who died in battle. The death train shows the murder of innocents. People systematically starved and killed for ideology alone. Technical Sergeant Elie Wiesenthal moves along the train photographing the evidence. His hands shake as he operates the camera. The documentation is necessary. Future generations will need proof. The soldiers move toward the main camp. They have witnessed the train. They believe they have seen the worst. They enter through the gates. They are wrong. again. Inside Dachau, 32,000 prisoners remain alive. Barely. The soldiers see men who weigh 70 pounds, skeletal figures with eyes too large for shrunken faces, prisoners too weak to stand, crawling on hands and knees, bodies stacked in piles awaiting cremation because the killing exceeded the capacity to dispose of corpses. The camp barracks were designed to hold 200 prisoners each. They contain 800. Men sleeping in tiers of wooden bunks with no mattresses, no blankets, no sanitation. The soldiers find the crematorium ovens still warm, charred human remains inside. The apparatus of industrial murder operating until hours before liberation. They find medical experimentation facilities, documentation of hypothermia experiments, high-altitude pressure tests, malaria studies conducted on living prisoners without anesthesia. They find punishment cells, spaces too small to stand in, too narrow to lie down. Prisoners kept in these cells for days until they died of exposure or thirst. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks moves through the camp with his command staff. He has commanded men through brutal campaigns. He understands violence and death. This is different. This is systematic, bureaucratic. Industrial-scale murder designed and executed with precision. SS guards begin emerging from positions around the camp. Some carry white flags, the universal symbol of surrender. They are attempting to give themselves up to American forces. They expect to be processed as prisoners of war. They expect the protections of international law. The American soldiers look at these guards, clean uniforms, well-fed, healthy, men who presided over a facility where tens of thousands were systematically murdered. The soldiers have just walked through the death train. They have seen the skeletal prisoners. They have witnessed evidence of crimes that exist outside their comprehension of human behavior. Something fundamental shifts in this moment. Military discipline, maintained through 500 days of combat, begins to fracture. The rules that governed their conduct, the regulations drilled into them, the Geneva Convention they were trained to respect, all of it collides with what they have just witnessed. 4 SS officers emerge from a wooded area carrying a white flag. They approach Lieutenant William Walsh of I Company, 157th Infantry Regiment. Walsh has inspected the death train. He has walked through the camp. He has seen what these men created. He makes a decision that will define the next hours. The pressure has been building since the first freight car door opened. Each corpse, each skeletal prisoner, each piece of evidence has accumulated like weight on a structure never designed to bear it. Walsh orders his men to march the 4 SS officers back to the death train. He forces them to climb into one of the freight cars, a car still filled with corpses of prisoners who died under SS custody. He makes the officers stand among the bodies, surrounded by the evidence of what the camp system created. Then Walsh draws his pistol and shoots all 4 officers. They fall among the corpses, mortally wounded, but not yet dead. Their screams attract other American soldiers. Several soldiers finish what Walsh started. The wounded SS officers are executed where they lie. The killings at the death train are only the beginning. At the coal yard near the camp's edge, 16 SS guards who have been detained are lined up against a wall. American soldiers form an impromptu firing squad. The guards are executed without trial, without processing, without any procedures required by military law. At Tower B, 17 more SS guards are shot, some attempting to surrender, others trying to hide. The breakdown is spreading. The liberated prisoners now understand something has changed. The guards who terrorized them for years are suddenly vulnerable. The Americans are not intervening. Some are participating. Others are looking away. Polish prisoner Walenty Lenarczyk, who survived years in Dachau, will later describe what happened simply. Prisoners seized SS guards and attacked them. Guards were knocked down and beaten. Nobody could see whether they were trampled or struck, but they were killed. Lenarczyk explains the prisoners' mindset without apology. For years they had been treated as animals. Liberation was their birthday, the day they could finally strike back. The violence is brutal and direct. Prisoners beat SS guards with fists, with rocks, with improvised weapons. Guards who inflicted years of suffering die within minutes at the hands of their former victims. American soldiers witness this prisoner violence and face a choice. Military law requires them to intervene, to protect surrendering enemies, to maintain order. Many choose not to intervene. They look away. They allow the prisoners to exact revenge. In one documented incident, soldiers stand by while 2 liberated prisoners beat an SS guard to death with a shovel. They could have stopped it easily. They chose to watch. By evening on April 29th, order is being restored. Officers reassert control. The executions stop. Remaining SS personnel are processed through proper military channels. Medical teams begin treating the 32,000 survivors. But the violence of those first hours cannot be undone. Between 35 and 50 SS guards have been killed after attempting to surrender. Some by American soldiers, some by liberated prisoners, some in circumstances where responsibility cannot be clearly determined. The evidence is extensive. Multiple soldiers witnessed the executions. Officers filed reports documenting what occurred. The incidents cannot be hidden or ignored. Within days, reports of the Dachau reprisals reach 7th Army headquarters. The U.S. Army faces a dilemma that has no clean resolution. American soldiers have committed acts that violate military law and international conventions. They have executed surrendering prisoners. They have armed liberated inmates and allowed them to kill guards. They have stood by while violations occurred in front of them. Should they be prosecuted? Should there be consequences for violating the laws of war, even when those violations occurred in response to witnessing the worst atrocity of the European theater? The decision rests with General George S. Patton, May 1945, 7th Army Headquarters, Bavaria. The reports from Dachau reach Patton's desk. The death train, the skeletal prisoners, the piles of corpses, the executions of SS guards by American soldiers and liberated prisoners. Patton is no stranger to concentration camps. On April 12th, he visited Ohrdruf, a subcamp of Buchenwald, the first concentration camp liberated by American forces. Patton is a hard man, a career soldier who has commanded armies through brutal campaigns, a general who prides himself on toughness and ability to face any horror without flinching. But after touring Ohrdruf and seeing the evidence of systematic murder, the bodies, the torture implements, the crematorium ovens, Patton walked behind a building and vomited. His aide witnessed it and recorded in his diary that he had never seen Patton so physically affected. Now Patton must decide what to do about soldiers who executed SS guards at Dachau. An investigation is ordered. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Whitaker interviews dozens of soldiers, collects testimony, documents the violations. Charges are prepared against Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks for failure to maintain discipline, against Lieutenant William Walsh for murder. The charges are serious and well documented, but they require Patton's approval to proceed. Patton understands the legal arguments. Military discipline requires consequences for violations. Failing to prosecute sets a dangerous precedent that soldiers can execute prisoners whenever they feel justified. But Patton also understands what his soldiers witnessed at Dachau. He has seen similar horrors at Ohrdruf. He knows the SS guards at Dachau operated a facility where tens of thousands were systematically murdered. That those guards showed no mercy to their victims. That they presided over years of torture, starvation, and industrial-scale killing. And when American soldiers, men who fought honorably for years, who followed the rules of war, who maintained discipline through brutal combat, encountered those SS guards and the evidence of their crimes, they responded with rage and violence. Patton makes his decision. He orders the charges dismissed. No courts-martial will proceed. No disciplinary action will be taken against any soldier involved in the Dachau executions. The decision is controversial. Some argue it undermines military discipline, establishes a dangerous precedent, damages America's moral authority in prosecuting Nazi war criminals. But Patton's reasoning is straightforward. His soldiers confronted evidence of the worst atrocity of the war. They responded as human beings, not as perfectly disciplined machines following regulations. Patton will not punish men for being human in the face of inhuman evil. The Judge Advocate General's office conducts its own review. Colonel Charles L. Decker is assigned to provide the final legal opinion. Decker's analysis, completed in late 1945, is remarkably candid. He acknowledges explicitly that violations of international law occurred, that it appeared there had been a violation of the letter of international law, as SS guards appeared to have been shot without trial. This is not ambiguous legal language. Decker states clearly that war crimes were committed by American forces. The executions of surrendering prisoners violated the Geneva Convention. But Decker then addresses the circumstances. The death train with 2,000 corpses, the 32,000 skeletal prisoners barely alive, the piles of bodies throughout the camp, the evidence of systematic torture and murder. Decker's conclusion: given these circumstances, justice and equity did not require that the difficult and perhaps impossible task of fixing individual responsibility be undertaken. The statement captures the essential dilemma. Yes, crimes were committed by American soldiers, but those crimes were committed in response to witnessing evidence of crimes so much worse. Crimes of such overwhelming magnitude that holding individual soldiers accountable seemed unjust. The case is closed. No charges filed, no courts-martial, no punishment administered. Lieutenant William Walsh, who executed 4 SS officers in the freight car, never apologized for his actions. When interviewed in 1990, 45 years after the event, he was asked directly about the killings. His response was blunt and unrepentant. Walsh stated that he did not think there was any SS guard who was shot or killed at Dachau who wondered why he was killed or could not figure it out. The implication was clear. The SS guards knew exactly what they had done. They knew what they had been part of. And when American soldiers who had just discovered 2,000 corpses in freight cars decided those guards deserved immediate execution, the connection was obvious. The soldiers who participated in the Dachau reprisals were never officially sanctioned. but they lived with what they had done. And across the spectrum of reactions, one theme remained consistent. They believed that people who had not witnessed Dachau could not fully judge their actions. That understanding what they had done required understanding what they had seen. The case was closed officially, but it raised questions that remain fundamentally unresolved. What is the appropriate response when soldiers witness atrocities so extreme that normal moral frameworks seem inadequate? Where is the line between justice and vengeance when the crimes being responded to are crimes against humanity itself? These questions have no easy answers. The Dachau reprisals stand as a reminder that sometimes the most important questions cannot be definitively resolved. They can only be understood in their full complexity. Chapped.